I am not a fan of Avi Lewis or his father or David Suzuki or the NDP, and I'm going to tell you why. I worked my whole life for the workers, and I was a long supporter of the NDP, and definitely I was a social democrat in the sense that I was for democracy and for sane socialism. Making everything public, communism is not my choice. But what I'm really upset about today is I watched how Stephen Lewis fought for the children in Africa. Yeah, well, and David Suzuki. I'm going to go back to 1986 when my immune system had completely collapsed because the doctor poisoned me with Benadryl. But I crippled at 6 years old, poisoned brain dysfunction, and a disease that goes back to 1775. And when I found out that there was all this science, that the toxic chemicals from the smelter in Sudbury was poisoning the children and causing cancer to the workers, and from there, obviously the military didn't have proper gas mask equipment. They were getting poisoned in Gulf War and so on, and I took to the streets in a gas mask, yeah, me, all by myself, to fight, to stop our being poisoned and causing diseases, and mine has multiple chemical sensitivities and Parkinsonism, and I crippled since I'm 6 years old and I'm 84. And I actually was taken to Toronto to meet with David Suzuki because supposedly he was against our being poisoned and all of that stuff. Yeah, well, he threw me to the ground at the Y. He wouldn't even. It's one thing to not talk to me, but I'm a sick, disabled woman, and he pushed me, and I fell to the cement. And the staff came and helped me, and I took an attack. And I told my girlfriend, to hell with Canada. Because I had contacted the NDP and every member of Parliament that was an NDP, coast to coast. And as well as Stephen Lewis. And all our members of Parliament, both Conservatives, and anyway, not one gave a shit. And I managed in 1989 to get a vice president of the United Steelworkers Union from the United States. The union in Canada wouldn't lift a finger to help me. Well, I will say this for Falconbridge. At the time, they were losing the mine mill union. The mine millers were already supportive to me. That was never an issue. But they weren't strong enough to do anything. And our doctors, literally, other than one, and I won't mention the name, were against our being treated for being poisoned. They would not legally recognize being poisoned. Toxic chemicals, air, food, water, beverages, except for our Indigenous Native people. And what we were doing, what our government was doing to those people, I had no idea. But I am really ticked off because, not that anybody's going to listen to me, but I risked my life to fight for our workers. And the NDP wouldn't lift a damn finger to help me. And because of the union, in 1994 they came up, sent scientists from the United States. Of course, under Trump, you'd never see anybody doing anything like that now. But they tested our men, and it saved Dan's life and thousands of lives. And they got the MSA better gas mask equipment. And I then gave a talk at the military. A general heard about me in Wasaga Beach. And I went to the military at Camp Borden. And I was in the big bubble gas mask at that time because I was trying to get media. And, if my face was covered like this, they wouldn't talk to me. But the bubble mask, Pittsburgh sent it to me. And they sent me a bunch of masks. In fact, I still use the one they sent me. But, oh, my God, am I ever ticked off. I mean, all this talk, how they care. David Suzuki didn't give a damn. No, not a damn. I often wondered if he was just a charlatan and using CBC and his documentaries to make money, because he sure didn't care about the children getting poisoned like I was, and nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. The toxic chemicals, and it's not about global warming. To hell with that. It's called poison. We're being poisoned. And I don't need an electric vehicle. All I need is for the engineering, which they have and they know how to do, is completely recycle. Nothing has to go out the back end. And even a mechanic in the tractor trailer told me diesel the same. They don't have to be spewing that shit out there into the atmosphere and poisoning everybody and themselves. My best friend Joanne, a bus driver, and I kept saying to her, you got to wear a gas mask. Well, she didn't have whatever it takes to do that, and she died with cancer from the gas fumes driving a bus. But anyway, I am not a fan of Avi Lewis, and I stopped supporting the NDP, because until they get on board with, never mind about global warming and all this bullshit, get real. Stop poisoning the children and start fighting about the diseases that these toxic chemicals are causing. And stop your bullshit. I mean, yeah, saving children in Africa from AIDS, yeah, that's very nice. But what about saving the children here in Canada? And in the United States? Well, we can't even. That'll take about 500 years. I'm not even going to go there. Bunch of maniacs down south, they just don't get it. But anyway, no, I'm not a fan of Avi Lewis. No way, Jose. He hasn't got a darn clue what's really going on. And I don't know why his father didn't pay any attention. I was actually pretty famous, you know, and even Elizabeth Taylor offered to help me, except at that time I didn't have enough information. There was nothing I could tell her that was useful. But oh my God, get real, people. And that stupid Poilievre, leader of the Conservatives, what a jackass. I just so fed up. But I am, for now, really proud of Prime Minister Carvey. He's in the right direction, but unfortunately, he's not going to be able to deal with the toxic chemicals to children right now. Our workers are losing their jobs, and our industry is in the toilet, and our provinces are still fighting with each other. The barriers on trade are not down. And I want to tell you something. As much as I am a socialist spiritually, poverty sucks. And nationalizing everything and put it in the control of the government is not a solution to everything. On the other hand, we need subsidized housing for anybody who earns under $40,000 a year. Put a cap on it. I'm going to tell you, I know a guy who was earning almost $200,000 a year, and he was going down to the food bank, eating off the food bank. Yeah, well, and then he was taking holidays in Cuba. I don't think most people would not do that, I don't think. But, you know, you really need to have a cap on some of these things. And yes, we need to develop our oil industry and our gas industry. But I am not a favor in pipelines. Put them on a truck. Stop going through land and risking our wilderness with your stupid pipelines. You don't have to do that. And build the highways in the north. By all means, open up the north and help our Eskimo people and our natives make money off of their minerals, you know, and you want to make a grocery store that's public for people, put a cap on it. I don't want to see somebody making $100,000 a year going and taking the food like that. That's not right. My income is just under $2,000 a month, and that covers my food, and Dan pays the rent. Well, if I was living alone, well, I don't know what I would do, but I make sure that, you know, I buy local, and I buy as much Canadian as possible. And just because I have to have all organic, yes, my food bill is $2,000 a month, and most people couldn't afford that. But if we had, and here's another thing, our farmers. Do you know that our tax system in Canada put the small farmers out of business? They don't have the right to declare their expenses, and they deliberately, hundreds of thousands were put out of business, coast to coast, and over thousands of them here in the north. Yeah. Now, you call that a democracy? Why wasn't the NDP looking at that? I tried to talk to them about that 35 years ago. Yeah. Boy, I got a bone to pick. And I am not a fan of Avi Lewis. No. He's in the twilight zone. And I'm not a fan of our conservatives either. But for now, if every politician smarten up and stop being so damn corrupt and on the take, or just useless as chits on a ball, as the member of parliament for NDP is here in Sudbury. God knows, 35 years ago, I begged for their help, and who came to my rescue? The Americans. And there's a long list of them, and I put them in my biography, and God bless them. They're all dead now, but they helped me. And I don't know why I'm still alive, but anyway, I'm ever angry. I'm no fan of Avi Lewis. Over and out.